Welcome back. Today we're going to talk a little bit about negativity. Negativity is a form of resistance, and the idea of negativity is basically to resist reality as it is, not accepting things as they are. That's where negativity comes from. Now, it can be represented in two different ways. On a mental level, it's a form of judgment. It's judging things in a certain way. On an emotional level, negativity is represented as a negative emotion. Whether it's pain, anger, or any other emotion, is a form of a negative way of accepting things as they are. Now, where does this come from? The idea of judgment comes from learned behavior or unconscious patterns. This is usually learned behavior. We learned this when we were kids. We learned how to judge things. Our parents taught us that certain things were good and certain things were bad. So we learned that the day that is rainy is a bad day. Sunny days are good days. And we learn how to label everything and how to put everything in these little black and white labels. The reality of it is we can't really foresee what's bad or what's good. These concepts of good and bad are things that we learn from our parents, from society, from everybody else. A lot of the most negative things that we think about are the things that bring the best in our lives, because they bring the best out of us. Usually when we go through a very difficult circumstance, it allows us to grow and to become better people. So the idea of judging good and bad and creating these judgments is what brings resistance in the first place. Because we tend to see something that happens in our life, instead of looking at it as an opportunity to grow, we see it as a bad thing. Once we judge it as a bad thing and we give it that label, automatically in our minds we create judgment towards any circumstance. Once we do that, the emotional response comes, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, in any other possible way that you can conceive and feel this in your life, it is represented this way. Think about this, for example. In our culture, we are taught that when someone dies, it's a really bad thing. And we cry and we mourn, and it becomes a very negative connotation, knowing that all of us are going to die. There are cultures in which death is celebrated, as someone passing from this place to a much better place. And if you go to these places and you cry when someone dies, people will think you're selfish. That's ridiculous. This person just went to a better place and you're crying? Now, I'm not saying, again, is wrong or is right, and there's no judgments on these basic ideas. It's just to prove a point that a lot of the things that we label as good or bad are usually just influenced by our society, or they are unconscious patterns of behavior. So we tend to run these patterns repeatedly. Now, once we create negativity and we avoid reality, we begin to create pain. And this pain stays in our bodies and our minds. And we begin to become more and more and more negative. Now, instead of dealing with the actual pain behind it or confronting reality, what we tend to do is we tend to try to hide the pain. And we do this in many different ways. Some people do it by eating. When they feel bad and they create pain in their lives, they eat. And since food changes your biochemistry and the way that you feel, automatically you feel better. The problem is you do it again and again and again, and then all of a sudden it becomes a bad habit. Now you overeat, and then you feel guilty because you eat a lot. Other people shop, and they go shopping and they spend money, they buy all these new things and feel better about themselves. Other people drink, other people do drugs. We find all these different bad habits that we get into to avoid the pain. In reality, there are only two options. One, you accept the reality as it is. Whatever situation you were dealing with, you have to accept it as it is. That's it. Just accept it. If it's a painful situation, if it's a difficult situation, you accept the reality. Two, you do something to change it. Instead of focusing on what's going on and why is it a negative thing, you put a lot of effort and action into changing this in your life. That's about it. There are circumstances that we cannot change, and therefore we need to learn how to accept those things. And this is when the third part of the whole thing comes about. It's the idea of being proactive with your emotions. The idea of acting and being proactive instead of being reactive, there's a big difference between one and the other. Being reactive usually means something happens and you react. For the most part, this is in an unconscious way. You don't even think about what you're doing. Automatically you hear a song and you feel sad. Someone says a specific word that you heard that was a negative thing when you were a kid. You automatically go into this pattern and you either cry or you get upset, or someone says anything about your weight, about the color of your skin, about how much money you have, or they say something about the country where you were born, or the state, or the university you went to, and you automatically get reactive and you get upset and you create more pain and more drama. Being proactive, on the other hand, is learning how to use awareness, learning how to see and hear what other people are saying and try to understand what they mean by it, and understand that you don't have to take this personally. Behind every single addiction, every single bad behavior, there is pain that is being hidden underneath, and this pain needs to come out. You need to be aware of these things. You need to be aware of what's causing this pain. Awareness is the key to be able to have some sort of circumstance, whether it's something that you perceive as good or bad, come into your life. Become aware of it, understand it, know, and ask yourself questions. What does this mean to me? Why am I reacting this way? Why am I upset? Why am I going to the fridge every 5 minutes? And become aware of these patterns. Again, 1, you accept reality as it is. 2, take massive action and change whatever you need to change in your life situation if you're not happy about it. Now, I want to say, I'm not a therapist, and I'm not trying to give you advice. If you really are dealing with an addiction or you have a problem you have to deal with, I ask you to please find a good doctor or find help or go to therapy or do whatever you need to do. These videos are just a series of ideas and things that I have learned over the years, and I'm trying to share positive information and hopefully provide some sort of motivation. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope to see you soon again. Goodbye.